Welcome to episode 253 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the Rolexs, Ferraris, Football, and Milestones edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host. Sim racing novice, of course, after 1 week of racing in my sim league at Apex One. And of course, I'm with my co-host, somebody who definitely isn't a sim racing novice. He's the iRacing Indy 500 champion, computer genius, a gentleman, a scholar, someone who's done a version of the Cannonball Run successfully, and also can say he has finished the iRacing 24 Hours of Daytona in the top 10. His name is Josh Fine. What's going on, brother?
Hey, I'm doing great, Phil. Of course, yeah, the Rolex or iRacing 24 Hours of Daytona was this past weekend, and I decided to do it, and I joined a team, and we competed in LMP2 class and got P2 and 9th overall, P2 in class there. So, yeah, it was a good experience, and glad to have done it and everything. So, yeah, it was a very, very testing and grueling experience, but it was a lot of fun, and hopefully be able to do it again next year and everything. So, of course, we got the Rolex coming up, and it's the start of another racing season, of course. So, yeah, ready to get into it and talk about that, and also talk about all the stuff that happened in the NFL this weekend and all the coaching updates as well.
Yeah, it'll be tight, compact, but there'll be a lot of information going on. We'll talk about Divisional Round Weekend, very interesting, but in a lot of ways, at least three of the teams, I think we could say we expected to get there. How they got there, of course, is different ways, but we'll get in all that. We'll talk about the coaching news, what's going on for Josh with the Jaguars. It might actually affect the 49ers, based on one of the people that seems to be a favorite for the head coach. The Jets look like they have their head coach lined up. The Chicago Bears have their head coach now. And we'll get in all that. We'll talk about any major news from all three major series. That includes Lewis Hamilton going to Maranello and going to the Ferrari factory for the first time, meeting all the team members, meeting his bosses, going to Enzo Ferrari's office, etc., big fanfare, including now his first appearance in a Ferrari uniform. So talk about that with the testing and all that stuff that's going to start going on here. NASCAR news with some teams with sponsorships, and then the Clash, format being announced. IndyCar, there's been various news items, of course. The announced team was put out there last week, but then Will Buxton's already being controversial, so that's always great. But then Michael Cannon, who's like the suitcase Jake of IndyCar, was I think hired by Prema late last year to be their lead engineer or head the engineering department, and he's gone now. So those are some of the news items we'll look at. We'll talk about the Dakar Rally, which saw an American win in one of the classes and Americans fare well in a bunch of the classes. Who won the Chili Bowl for a third time, joining illustrious company. It wasn't as straightforward as it has been in the past, but I guess the best American driver did it again. Supercross at San Diego sees a legend get another victory in what is supposed to be his quote, last season, end quote. We will preview Rally Monte Carlo, the first race of a new season. The usual curtain raiser and new cars, no hybrid component on these WRC Rally 1 cars anymore. So they're more power, not as much power per se, but it seems like they're more drivable. And then the Rolex 24 at Daytona, of course, and it'll start this weekend. It'll start on Saturday and it'll end on my birthday, which is the milestone part. Sunday, I'm a man. I'm 40. I'll be 40. I'll be having fun the next few days. So I'm trying to do as much as I can before that. We'll talk about conference championship weekend and how Patrick Mahomes will go and win again because the refs want him to. And they want Taylor Swift in the stands and all that other bullshit. So we'll talk about that and if they'll probably have a rematch against the Eagles or if somehow or another the Washington General Redskin Commanders could make their first Super Bowl since 1991. That would be ridiculous. That was the last time Minnesota had held a Super Bowl before Super Bowl 52. That was the last game of Joe Gibbs's initial run as a head coach that he won that game and then retired before he came back. So it would be something if Washington were to do that, with a rookie quarterback, no less. Josh will let us know everything going on in iRacing and, of course, how his race went in the iRacing 24. I'll even pop in for a first time, I think, ever in the segment after 250-something episodes and kind of talk about how I wasn't the absolute worst. I was pretty close, but I didn't crash that much, and I wasn't in the way of the leaders when they did come up to me, but I did keep up with the leaders once they did pass me. So we'll call it a day. So let's start, of course, with the NFL Divisional Round Weekend. I don't think we're really surprised what happened with 3 of the 4 games. The Chiefs had how many weeks off, and they come back. They're as healthy as they probably have been all year. Kermit the Frog does Kermit the Frog things. Travis Kelce has his best game of the year, conveniently, and the Texans really didn't have an answer. And Kermit and the Chiefs win 23-14. They're thinking about implementing rules for flopping because Patrick Mahomes flops. And the league and the refs seem to always call it because he's the new Tom Brady. What they really should do is just allow one of these guys to go and baptize him and then just throw him out of the game. That would be a funnier thing. At least somebody can unload on him, get him concussed, and then they'd have to take him off the field for like a few plays before they put him back on the field. But, you can't bring it back to the old days when you had real football when Steve Young got destroyed on every play that he'd run. But then he was still throwing darts, or when Aikman got sent into the grandstands by LeVar Arrington, that was football, not the bullshit that Kermit the Frog does, but whatever. The Lions did not show up on Saturday night, or more accurately, Jared Goff absolutely shit the bed. And basically, in one game, proved why Sean McVay quit on him. One of the worst games of Jared Goff's career, akin to what he did in that Super Bowl, that god-awful Super Bowl they played against the New England Patriots years ago. Turned the ball over a lot, basically made it untenable. And then you add Jaden Daniels being a freak of nature and just tearing through that defense, decimated defense, Aaron Glenn's Detroit Lions defense, MCDC, Ben Johnson, nothing. No resistance, no biting in kneecaps. Detroit had a chance, 2 wins away from possibly making their first Super Bowl ever, and they're going home. On Sunday afternoon, the Philadelphia Eagles, basically on the back of Saquon Barkley in the snow, dominated. The Rams got back in the game. They weren't really that. The score makes it look better. I think the Eagles really had control, largely because Saquon could do whatever he wanted. And Jalen Carter could do whatever he wants. He's a murderer, but then he can also go and run over quarterbacks. So that's always great. And then in the last game, which was the game of the weekend, one of the games of the year, the Buffalo Bills hosting the Baltimore Ravens in the MVP battle. Lamar Jackson seemingly, when they held onto the ball, had no problem driving down the field. But there was a ton of miscues. He fumbled the ball. There was a lot of drops. Mark Andrews had one of his worst games of his career, unfortunately, in this spot. Had a fumble, had that drop on the 2-point conversion. I had one other drop. So it was just a really bad situation. Derrick Henry didn't really do anything in the first half. Came back in the second half, was pretty good. The Buffalo Bills had no answer in the second half. They were nowhere. Really, they were nowhere across the board. They were not prepared. They did not make adjustments, which is a typical Sean McDermott thing. Reminds me of Kyle Shanahan, which is why they couldn't get through the divisional round for how many years in a row. Baltimore probably could have and should have won that game, but Josh Allen did just enough to save the day. And if anything, that's the reason why he should be the MVP, because his coach is an idiot. And Joe Brady, that offense was stagnant. They couldn't do anything. James Cook was kind of contained. He had moments, but he wasn't the same, his usual self. Wide receiver Shakir was able to do some stuff, but he wasn't able to do what he usually does, which is, the yard after catch deal. Coleman, I think, had one big catch, and that was it. Tight ends. So it's like Buffalo was the better team in the first half. They didn't really get as much as they probably wanted out of it, and they were up double digits. And then Baltimore played better in the second half, in theory, but couldn't convert. So in the end, the NFC Championship will have the Philadelphia Eagles hosting the Washington Commanders, a third matchup between the two NFC East rivals. Eagles trying to go back to the Super Bowl for a third time in, the last 7-8 years, something like that. Kermit and the Chiefs for the 100th time in the last 100 years. Or Buffalo for the first time since 1993. For Washington, be first time since 91. And for Buffalo to be 1993, because that was Buffalo's fourth of 4 Super Bowls in a row. Yeah, 90, 91, 92, 93. Yeah, so that's a kind of synopsis of all of the games combined. Where do you want to go with this, Josh, in terms of these games? Do we focus on the good in terms of Jaden Daniels and how great he has looked in this playoffs, basically making Adam Peters the executive of the year, and Dan Quinn's going to get a second coach of the year? You look at the Saquon Barkley having another amazing game and making John Merrill look like an absolute retard? Or are we looking at Lamar Jackson failing in a spot in the playoffs again, and the Detroit Lions just not having any answers, and literally 2 days later, 3 days later, neither of their coordinators anymore either, because everyone's going to start poaching the Lions for their people because of what they've been able to do with that regime.
I think for me, I gotta talk about the Lions. I think the Lions and the Commanders game is probably the one that a lot of people want to look at. There is, how did the Commanders win this game? And really, the answer is the turnovers by Goff, by that team. The Jared Goff turns into a pumpkin whenever he has to put the team on his back. I think the defense just wasn't making any plays, and he had to throw over 40 times in that game. So to me, I just think that whenever you ask them to do too much, that's what's going to happen, is that they're going to get points outpointed by the other team. And normally 31 points is a winnable. Like you usually win when you score 31 points, but at the same time, they got outscored by 2 touchdowns there, and of course, it doesn't help with the trick plays that they called, like Ben Johnson, which I really think that this is like one of those like resume type plays where you gotta like display this. Here's my resume out on display for teams that are interviewing to look at, and that is the play where they basically had Jamison Williams go out and try to throw a pass, out deep, and it got intercepted. And I mean, that was probably one of the worst plays that you could have called in that situation. But I guess if you're interviewing, maybe you can just point to it was bad execution there. If they had to go with that, because I mean, that's the only way I can think of is like, yeah, like that was one of those like, yeah, like here's everything, like everything in the bag right here. If you're watching and want to hire him as a head coach, but yeah, I mean, Jared Goff there, just whenever he has to throw too much, it just doesn't turn out well. And and the defense, they're injured. Detroit, they just didn't have enough on defense to keep Jaden Daniels in check, and that's what ended up happening. Which it's a shock because the Lions were so good this year, but just the right scenario for the Commanders to go in there and dominate and go out with the win, which is shocking. But Jaden Daniels, a lot of poise in this, which I read about him this weekend. Apparently went well. I guess his last year at LSU, they started doing some like AI VR training with him to speed up his process and speed up practice for him. And apparently he actually uses like an AI, like I guess like this AI VR trainer, whatever that he uses, basically just simulates game speed at 1.75 times the normal game speed. So he's actually learning at a faster rate and practicing, I guess, individually at a faster rate than most people are in the NFL. So that's actually pretty interesting. I didn't know that. And, it's kind of like, when you're reading, I at least for me, sometimes when I'm watching something, particularly if it's a, lecture or, something like that. Sometimes if I play it at, speed it up a little bit, sometimes I'm actually able to pay attention more because, you have to really understand everything and, like process all that information. Sometimes if I play it at the regular speed, get bored and, attention goes away, but, speed it up, learn a little bit more. But I don't know if that's the same thing for Jaden Daniels, but just shows that by playing it at a faster speed in practice and then going out in the games, game speed's slower for him, and definitely, speeds up the learning process of understanding what coverage you're going to be in for this particular play, and learning how the defense is going to look like, and not shrinking in the moment like a lot of young quarterbacks, rookie quarterbacks tend to do. And that's why he's looked like such a pro this year, and probably why he'll get Offensive Rookie of the Year here for the Commanders there. So yeah, that was the first shocking result, of course, and now see them in the championship game, which I think is shocker. And it's pretty good though, because it's a rivalry game effectively with divisional round, who they beat in one of the last weeks of the season there. The Commanders beating the Eagles there, so in week 17. So that was pretty interesting to see that there, or week 16 actually, but pretty interesting to see that there. The other games, I mean, not really surprised at the result. The Rams, I mean, I think I kind of overestimated the Rams there and their ability. Obviously, kind of forgot about the elements there. I think that definitely hindered them quite a bit, and then also just the Eagles defense, just how dominant they were in that game. That won the game really. Saquon Barkley as well, playing phenomenal. He should be the MVP. Bills, Ravens, kind of went either way. And yeah, the fumbles, the turnovers hurt them. Mark Andrews, of course, a lot of people dogging him on social media, but just critical turnovers there in the second half that I think cost them the game there. The fumble put them behind, which I think they were able to still get a field goal out of that, stopping the Bills. But, then they have a chance, they get a touchdown, and then they have a chance to go for, 2-point conversion to tie the game. And then he drops the pass. So I don't know if I'd call that, I mean, it was a good play design. but I don't know if you're on the 2-yard line there. I don't know why you just hand it off to Derrick Henry, but maybe they're expecting it because they were, I think, stacking the box. The Bills were on that play, so disappointing for Lamar, and now questions if he'll ever get to the Super Bowl, which I don't know. That's definitely a tough question to ask there and everything, and then. The Chiefs, Texans, about expected that, but I think a lot of the focus there was just how poorly that game was officiated with all the flopping by Patrick Mahomes and etc. So I didn't even really get to watch that game because that was the one that was during the race during the 24 hours, so didn't really pay attention to that one. I did pay attention a little bit to the Commanders game, but that was just because I was spotting during that time, and you kind of look at it every now and then, but that was definitely mostly what we expect, except for the Commanders Lions. And then, by the way, for the Lions, Jared Goff makes 20% of their salary cap, and so that's going to be a very hard thing to think about over the next couple of years, as they have to pay him all that money over the next 2 years, and whether they'll be able to keep the team around him, as they have to change coordinators for defense and offense and start over in that arena. So we'll see what the Lions, and that's probably why Dan Campbell's so emotional, because you never know if you'll be able to do it again, because the way the team is set up right now, that this was probably the year that they had to win it all. Before you have to start paying people, you lose your coordinators and all that stuff. So it's definitely a shocker result there, and definitely because I would have thought the Lions probably could have gone to the Super Bowl this year with how they played throughout the year, but now it's going to be, one of the Eagles, Eagles, Commanders, and then Chiefs, Bills there. So not really the best result in terms of who I would have liked to have seen in the Super Bowl, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I agree with the sentiment, especially with Detroit, because you're going to lose both of your coordinators. You're going to have to make a decision at the quarterback position now, because I know they drafted, Hendon Hooker from Tennessee a couple of years ago, I believe, Detroit. And then I know that they have some younger players, and they have a lot of money that they have to give out here in the next few years for the likes of Aiden Hutchinson. When you miss that opportunity, it's really bad. I mean, as a fan of a team that has missed that opportunity multiple times in the last, 12 years, and getting to the big game and then doing it, it's really bad. I mean, when you're the best team in the conference, you're the number one seed. It's akin to what Green Bay did for years with Aaron Rodgers, not being able to close the deal. And it's interesting how the NFC North had 3 teams that had 12 or 13 wins or something, and they all went out before the conference championship, which is pretty crazy how that worked. But I mean, Jaden Daniels going out there and doing what he did, that Washington defense having answers, a lot of good players, the veteran guys they brought in. It proves once again why I wish that they would have given Adam Peters a promotion in San Francisco and kept him instead of letting him go, or not letting him go as much as he was given the bag by Josh Harris to go and take over the Commander organization, and he has done a great job with them. When you nail your first pick and that guy is going to be your franchise for the next 10 years, that also helps. Kermit the Frog, it's whatever. I didn't watch that game. I refused on principle to watch that game because I knew that kind of bullshit was going to happen anyways. And so, fuck him and fuck Taylor Swift's boyfriend. I didn't know that Caitlin Clark was one of her friends, but that's convenient. I guess Caitlin Clark has to look like she's a chick for the bit now because of where we're at in society. But in terms of Houston making the playoffs 2 years in a row with D'Amico Ryans and CJ Stroud, that's progress for an organization that was not doing very much before that. So in that division, of course, Josh, knowing that division very well, there's a lot of limbo around the rest of the teams that are in that division. So Houston kind of has a clean path at the moment. They just need to continue improving. Get some other receivers, because if they don't have Nico Collins out there, they're kind of lost. But what's the other game? Yeah, the LA Rams game against the Eagles. It was going to be hard for them in the weather. They made it interesting late, but they weren't going to get a call if they needed it there late, and they couldn't stop Saquon Barkley, so it didn't really matter. The Eagles defense, they couldn't stop two players. They couldn't stop their two best players, the Rams, so they had no chance. Stafford was going to get destroyed, and now they have a decision in terms of whether they want to continue with Stafford, or if Stafford wants to continue playing. He's got his ring, so what is it to him? What's his name? Why am I forgetting the defensive tackle for
Aaron
the Rams? Aaron Donald.
He's retired now.
Yeah, he called it quits last year. So, and he was one of the best players to ever play that position. I mean, what is it to Stafford to keep on holding on? He keeps on doing all these commercials with his hot MILF of a wife. He can keep doing commercials for as long as he wants. He could probably get a gig on one of these networks for their coverage. So, I mean, you see how Andrew Whitworth has done. So I figure he's probably on the next one on that list. So that'll be something there. But the Eagles are moving forward. And then for Lamar, I mean, it sounds like what everyone's saying, he's going to win a third MVP. It's his best year of his career, statistically, and he's done really good things. Personally, I think Josh Allen is more valuable to the Buffalo Bills and their progression in general. I think it's easily proven, because they're not doing anything without him. If he's not on, they're not going anywhere. That defense is mid, and McDermott is a mid head coach. John Harbaugh is a Super Bowl winning head coach. He has continuously won for God knows how many years. So we know he's a good coach. Lamar has won. I mean, albeit as an individual, he has done a very good job in his career. He did it in college too. But in big spots, he struggled. The Ravens offense, they made too many mistakes. You can't make that many mistakes in a playoff game and expect to win. It's just what it is, unfortunately. When they did drive and they had everything was clean, they drove down the field. But the problem was they gave up too many points early in the game. The Bills held on for dear life. Tyler Bass made that field goal late, and that was the difference. Because if they make that 2-point conversion, it's a tie game, then it's essentially a flip of a coin. Even though in the playoffs both teams theoretically have to get the ball, but that doesn't really mean anything. The Niners proved that in the Super Bowl. So yeah, I mean, Josh Allen to me is the MVP. Sunday's game in a lot of ways proved that. They're probably going to give it to Lamar, whatever, that's fine. But in the end, there's a possibility that Josh Allen could be in New Orleans for the Super Bowl too. So we'll see what happens with that. In terms of the coaching situation, I'll throw to you, Josh, for the Jags in a moment. The Bears that's something. So the Bears were hiring Ben Johnson as their head coach. Kevin O'Connell is getting an extension for the Vikings. Detroit, it looks like, is going to lose Aaron Glenn to the Jets, it seems like. The New England Patriots, of course, they got Vrabel. Now they're going to hire back Josh McDaniels to come back as the offensive coordinator, so bringing the whole crew back. I don't know whom. Oh, so the guy for Tennessee is from Kansas City. And then they hired John Fossil as their special teams coordinator, who's one of the best in the business at that. Lou Anarumo is hired as the new defensive coordinator. Longtime Bengals DC. Jeff Ulbrich is coming down from the Jets to go and work for Atlanta for what's it called? Why am I forgetting? Raheem Morris for as their defensive coordinator. We talked about Cleveland's moves. Here's some of these, blah, blah, blah. Those are all moved on. They haven't talked about some returning. They got returning. The Bears are done right now. For the Cowgirls, they interviewed Leslie Frazier and Bob Sala for the Rooney Rule. Kellen Moore and Brian Schottenheimer are the only other they've done so far. The Jags right here, what is it, 5? They've interviewed 10 people. One of them is off the board, so it's 9 guys left. It says second interviews scheduled for Buccaneers offensive coordinator Liam Cohen, Raiders defensive coordinator Patrick Graham, and then Bob Sala. The Raiders have 8. They've interviewed 8, or interviewed 7, and they're going to interview Todd Monken, or they're going to schedule that. Pete Carroll, Aaron Glenn, Vance Joseph, Todd Monken, Ron Rivera, Sala, Spagnuolo, and then Brandon Brown's getting a second interview as a Giant for the GM job, the Giants assistant GM. That's a curious one to pick. So Patriots did all that. So in New Orleans has 9 interviews. They've scheduled a second interview with Anthony Weaver and Aaron Glenn. The Jets have interviewed everybody and their mother. Aaron Glenn, it says second interview scheduled, is set for an in-person second interview. And I thought they hired him already. I thought they hired him already. I was under, because they were talking about it on local radio on FAN. And then they have a bunch of guys they interviewed. They didn't bother to. So they interviewed Chris Spielman. They interviewed Thomas Dimitrov. That would have been like a slam dunk in my opinion. But he's gone. Blah blah blah. Wink Martindale. That's somebody I think that the Niners should call. Why not? He's got one of the best defenses. He knows how to scheme a defense really, really well. Some of these other guys. They interviewed former corner Deshae Townsend. Passing you for it. Offensive coordinator interviews Nora Pauley. So, all right. So that's some of the coaching and GM people there. But Josh, you have a big part. Your Jaguars have a big part in this because they have a lot of guys. They have a lot of options, and of course, with Trevor, you have a quarterback there. So that's better than some of these other situations. Patriots being one of them. Well, no, Patriots actually do have a quarterback. My bad. The Saints, the Raiders, neither of them have a quarterback. Cowgirls, it's debatable if they really have a quarterback. But what are you thinking here? Aaron Glenn being one of the options, Bob Sala being another one, going defense this time after possibly going defense this time after having an offensive-minded head coach in Peterson. I guess a lot of the capital that you've invested in recent years has been on that defensive side with Josh Allen and some of the other big picks, for the exception of course, Lawrence and ETN. But what are your thoughts on the coaching search, and where do you think it's going to lead?
I think it's probably going to be Liam Cohen from the Buccaneers. They had a virtual interview, and I think they have a in-person interview scheduled. Obviously Ben Johnson going to the Bears, divisional rival for the Lions. So, I mean, for me, it speaks to the process, because the process that the Jaguars have, the heat bulky, and Ben Johnson says he was considering the Jaguars, but he didn't like the setup. Well, yeah, there you go. It's the refusal to get rid of this guy, and accepting that. Which, okay, Ben Johnson, we'll see how he does in Chicago, because I wasn't sure that was a great job either. But obviously, he liked it better, and he said he didn't like the setup in Jacksonville. So, I mean, there you go, and we'll see Liam Cohen, what the interview is. How that goes, and if he's willing to take the job and everything, and then we'll see if he gets fired in a year because they weren't able to make it work. But I think he's a good coach. I mean, he made Baker Mayfield look good again. Mayfield left the Browns and got practice squatted onto the Rams, and then revived his career there, but went to the Bucks, and now he's actually really good, and obviously helped you to a fantasy title this year. So, I think he's a really good coach, and maybe he's the guy. I mean, I've read that online that Trevor's camp is very pro Liam Cohen, like extremely pro Liam Cohen. So I don't know. I mean, it could be interesting to see if he's the guy. I mean, they could go Robert Saleh as well. I wouldn't mind him, but it's just going to be interesting to see what how they're able to navigate this with Balky seemingly staying on. This Balky guy, he must be superhuman, because if we had a nuclear war, he might be the survivor. So he probably figured out how to like morph into a cockroach or something. So if we ever had a nuclear blast,
is a cockroach.
Yeah, and we'll see. I mean, obviously he's got the perfect solution with being the general manager, because Shad is not going to fire him probably. Never going to see it happen. Shad doesn't understand. He doesn't want to do the process and everything, so that's why he's keeping these guys around. And he's very naive as a decision maker when it comes to the football side of things, not the business side of things. So he figured out how to be able to stay around, just work for a naive person, and Shad Khan, and maybe Tony Khan, who's obviously more interested in promoting the AEW these days, and all that. But I think it's going to be Liam Cohen. So we'll see if that turns out to be true. Probably, I expect a decision by the end of the week here. So we'll see what happens. But I no idea who the coordinators would be on defense or what direction that they would go in. But I don't really care who's like the whether they're offensive or defensive guy. They need to be a culture builder and a leader of people, and or a leader of men. So if you can do that and change the mentality of the team, I think that'd go a long way. Because I think part of it is the Jaguars mentality. I mean, while they lost a lot of close games, which I think is both a roster issue and a mentality issue there with and I think they gotta change and bring in a culture. And it seemed like on defense the Ryan Nielsen clashed internally a lot with the players and stuff, and I guess they never really were able to establish any chemistry. So we'll see what happens here for the coordinators, who they decide to get, who the players are, and all that as we go into the off season. But yeah, that's what we know right now for Jacksonville. And I guess as we go along this week, hopefully, we may have snow up in North Florida. They've already seen it in Northwest Florida, and Northeast Florida may see some snow tomorrow. So hopefully that doesn't impact the interview process any. So if they have any interviews Wednesday, they've already closed down the airport for the night and reopening tomorrow at I think noon. So hopefully it doesn't make any impact on the interview process at all. But that's where we're at right now in the process, the coaching process, which obviously being hindered by Trent Baalke.
Yeah, I wonder where I've heard that before. But yeah, Chicago's done. It seems like Aaron Glenn is the Jets' choice. I'd have to look on the socials here to see if that actually has come off or not. In terms of, and Erdahl's looking good these days, I gotta say, with being in LA, they're dolling her up. But for the Jets, they're going with a guy who they drafted in the first round. The organization did in years ago, and he was one of the better cornerbacks in the league during his time as a Jet, and then also with the Houston Texans. So going with somebody that is a former player, different but the same, where they're going with first-time head coaches, first-time head coach as a defensive guy, which is in terms of a lot of their recent hires, for the exception of Adam Gase, who was a psychopath, was a second-time head coach, was a retread, was an offensive coach. Other than that, I think going all the way back to Bill Parcells, I mean, even Rich Kotite and Pete Carroll, basically my whole entire time of knowing football, the Jets have gotten defensive coaches. It's like without fail, they've always been defensive coaches, for the exception of like Adam Gase. Mangini was, Rex Ryan was, you had Todd Bowles, Saleh, Al Groh, Parcells, Bill Belichick for two minutes. You had Jeff Ulbrich there as an interim. Herm Edwards, of course, back in the day, you play to win the game. Like all these defensive guys. So are they doing the right thing by doing that? They're not interviewing Mike McCarthy. Seems interesting that they wouldn't do that. For whatever, good, bad, or indifferent, he has won with two organizations, two of the premier popular organizations. He dealt with Jerry Jones being Jerry Jones and was able to generally put a winner out there. So you would think that they would want to get somebody like that, but who knows? It's the Jets. The Jags, getting affected by Trent Baalke and Shad Khan being an ignoramus sounds like the Yorks, with the York parents with Trent Baalke. And then eventually somebody got to Jed York once he kind of got in control, and he had Trent Baalke telling him all these sweet nothings, and eventually he saw that the Niners were the worst team in the NFL, and he's like, fuck this. I'm going to go and take control. I'm going to get rid of this dipshit, and I'm going to call John Lynch. And John Lynch was like, okay. It was unusual, considering he was an announcer at that point, but made him basically the CEO of the whatever, and his first call was to Kyle Shanahan. Shanahan was on his way to a Super Bowl with the Atlanta Falcons, Matt Ryan, Dan Quinn, and then 28-3 happened, but then I think 2 days later, Kyle Shanahan became the coach of the 49ers. And here we sit, what was that, 8 years later. So, we got some of these. I'm trying to think who else. The Cowgirls, who knows what the hell they're going to do. Raiders, who knows what the hell they're going to do. New Orleans Saints, whatever. Really, I think it's the Jets and the Jaguars at this point are the ones that kind of have a bit of intrigue because of the talent that the Jets have, the Jags having Trevor and a lot of young, talented players as well. So those are the two teams that I think there's actually potential if you go in there and can, set a culture like you said, Josh. Go and move on to NASCAR. The main thing, the Clash, which is they announced the format, which essentially I think is the same format they've had for the last couple of years at the Coliseum. I don't see anything really different. They're going to have 3 practice groups, each group 3 sessions. Each competitor's fastest lap time from their final practice session will determine the starting lineup. They'll have 4 heat races. Everything is green flag only. Top 5 from each heat race, so it's same as that. Last chance, top 2 in the LCQ advance, and then the last driver to make it in will be the best driver in points last year who didn't qualify into the Clash. So essentially, the Joey Logano starts the race, knows he will start the race no matter what as the defending series champion. And then you have 22 other drivers that will go and make the show. You have Burt Myers of the, Myers family, Chocolate Myers, all that. Burt Myers, who's won at Bowman Gray multiple modified championships against Tim Brown, runs Southern Modifieds. He's going to be racing the 50 car, what used to be woman beater Mayweather's car. Now it's the Amerivets team. So they're going to put in an entry to try and make the show there to make the main event. You have Tim Brown that driving for Rick Ware. Then you have Garrett Smithley, who's going to run for Route 66 or Team 66 or whatever the hell. The new what has been MBM Motorsports Garage 66. There you go. Got it on the third try. Let's see. Rush Truck Center is adding yet the next example of a former Stewart Haas sponsor ending up on Gagson's 4-car. Rebel Bourbon will be on Quail's 8-car for I don't know how many races. So yeah, there'll be a few races there. Workforce will be on the 71 for Michael McDowell for 3 races. Sunny Delight for third for at least 5 races for the new Hayek Motorsports team. And Winchester Rifles, along with Bass Pro, will sponsor Bald Spot Dylan for half the season. So I guess that's their way of differentiating all the Bass Pro Shop cars that are going to be out there, since, of course, Chase Briscoe will drive the 19 with Bass Pro on it. Then you have, of course, Martin's going to be driving a Bass Pro car at Daytona, and then you'll have that one for Bald Spot Dylan, so at least you'll be able to differentiate a couple of the Bass Pro cars there. Speaking, of course, of Martin Truex, we pass our condolences to the Truex family on the loss of Martin Truex Sr., long-time competitor in the Busch North Series, did that on the side of his fishing business, and that fishing business and the success that he was able to have was basically the way that Martin Jr. was able to set his path towards a career that is Hall of Fame worthy. Of course, Ryan Truex now is the lead reserve driver for Toyota and NASCAR Cup Series action. So got to give him credit. Former Cup Series driver, has sat and ran limited races in the Xfinity Series, and now has got a pretty good opportunity. Now, whether he will get a shot this year, to be determined. But our thoughts and best wishes go out to the Truex family at this difficult time on the loss of MTJ Sr. The last thing, there was a couple other lawsuit things for Ron Devine, BK Racing, the lawsuit NASCAR has with the 2311 and front row. And then Zane Smith, Speedy Cash is going to be the main sponsor for the 38 car in 2025. In news for the Xfinity series, NASCAR announced their new channel on Tubi, which is a Fox thing. LeBay, Emmerling, Leitz, Split, SS Greenlight 07. Okay. D Burrito 99, Viking, Chevy. Yeah, we knew that. Friends of Jacqueline Foundation sponsor Sheldon Creed and the 000 car. So that'll be it's a nice looking car. Harrison Burton driving the number 25 for AM Racing this year. We'll have dead on tools for 10 of those races. Austin Green, son of David Green, former Xfinity Series champion, will run a limited schedule in the third Jordan Anderson car. Brad Perez running 4 races for Alpha Prime, the road courses, and then an organizational text based on the article on J-Ski for Xfinity and the truck teams, which they still haven't edited, so tells you all you need to know. Nothing in the truck series there. The format for the Clash hasn't really changed. It's just the location. Kyle Larson, Kyle Busch, A-Main, G-Main, Christopher Bell. Yeah, Kyle Larson gets his third Chili Bowl win in 6 years. Dason Pursley, runner-up. And then Shane Golobic, the third place finisher. So the Chili Bowl, and then Ryan Bernal, Landon Brooks, your top 5. Buddy Kofoid was 6th. Logan Seavey, former winner, 7th. Gavin Miller, Emerson Axum, and then Christopher Bell. Corey Day, who's a Hendrick development driver, 11th. Cannon McIntosh, 14th. Tyler Courtney, Sunshine, 15th. Justin Grant, 18th. Corbin Ruschenberg, who had everything but the lottery, in his prelim night, finished 20th after getting into it with Brenham Crouch. Tanner Thorson, Cale Drake, Tanner Thorson, Jonathan Beeson round out your results there. IndyCar, not really a lot in terms of IndyCar other than the Michael Cannon news that he's leaving. Not sure what caused that, but he's only been there a few months and then decided to leave there, so be it. You have Penske receiving the Baby Borg along with Joseph Newgarden, and then and then AJ Foyt, the legend, going and 90th birthday. So happy birthday, Mr. AJ. So that's IndyCar news. Other than James Hinchcliffe will be driving the Enduros for Pfaff Motorsports and their Lamborghini in GTD Pro. So there's that. Formula One, as I mentioned, Lewis Hamilton making his first appearance in Maranello, and all the pictures and the people reading into those pictures and stuff like that. Also uniform, first time wearing the Ferrari uniform. His longtime trainer, Angela Cullen, is back on his team. So that's a big deal, I think, for continuity and to provide comfort for him as he moves into a new situation. So that's really cool. And then Haas becomes the first ever team to have a lead race engineer, a female race engineer. Laura Muller will be Esteban Ocon's race engineer. So credit to Haas for their forward thinking in that sense. I don't know, was there anything amongst all that stuff that stood out to you, Josh? Or
No, I mean that's still kind of in the off-season mode, and everything. And you talk about, Kyle Larson winning the Chili Bowl, which is pretty crazy. I mean, I saw highlights of that and crashing out almost, and still managing to win. Which, a lot of people, there is some discourse I think online about how he won it, or should he have been allowed to? I guess win it based on how all that went down and everything, and they, I guess, kind of saved him in a way of, with how he was able to keep going. But that was definitely a crazy win there in the Chili Bowl. And then I don't know, did we mention last week Will Buxton, or this week Will Buxton joining Fox, which I think that's a pretty good move there. So
I thought we did last episode.
Yeah,
but we can talk about it more here.
No, that was I think we did, but I still, as you read more about his move to Fox there, I think that's going to be a great hire there for IndyCar, and I think he's definitely a perfect successor to Lee Diffie, calling the races full time for IndyCar for sure.
Sorry, just storing that number of somebody I've been talking to on one of the apps. So, for for Will Buxton, he has shoes to fill, but it's somebody he's familiar with, and I'm sure Lee Diffie is willing to help him. There's other guys like Bob Varsha, then Paul Page. Going back a while, that'd probably be willing to help him as well. But they're not that far away from having a call. They're about a month or 5 weeks away. So still haven't figured out who the pit road people are going to be. So we'll see what happens with that. Morty went through the Chili Bowl, so that's fine. The Dakar Rally ended last week on Friday, and the classifications in terms of the in the rally in the car category saw Yazid Al-Rahi get his first win in the Dakar, and he's the first driver to win the Dakar in his home country. So credit to him. Toyota Hilux 1-2 there, with Hank Latigan finishing 357 behind him. Matthias Ekstrom gives Ford a maiden podium on their first race with their new Ford truck there. Defending champion Nasser Al-Attiyah finishes fourth, and Mitchell Guthrie for Ford, American driver, finishes fifth. So in his debut, Seth Quintero, another American, won a couple of stages, finished ninth. So two Americans in the top 10. Credit to those guys being able to hold up against the best in rally raid competition. In terms of, I'm trying to see if look for anybody that's in cross country. Yeah, so then in the bike categories, of course, Daniel Sanders, who had been leading for a while for most of the rally, Tosha Sharania for Monster Energy HRC Honda finishes 8 minutes 50 seconds behind in the end. Adrian Van Beveren 14:46 behind. Luciano Benavides was fourth. Ricky Brabeck, the defending champion, finished just under a half hour behind in fifth. Skylar Howes, his teammate, was sixth, 42:44. So Americans fifth and sixth in the rally bike category. Only 10 riders finished of the rally GP bike category, so it shows how rough the race was. And then in terms of the Rally 2, Jacob Argabright finished 12th in the Rally 2 category. Edgar Kennett was the winner there for Red Bull KTM. Then, original, so then the Challenger category, Nicholas Caviglioso and his wife Valentina Pedergarini won by 1 hour 11:38 in the Challenger class. American team finished 10th. So there's and then does I see that? Yeah, Corbin Leverton, who was up there for a lot of the rally, had issues late and finished 20th in class. So he was somebody that was looking at a good result, and then late in the rally it went sideways for him. So that's the Challenger category. In SSV, Brock Hager and Max Eddy for the Sebastian Loeb racing team won by over 2 hours, and they really had the race won after the first week. They just were doing what they needed to do to manage that gap. In terms of, Hunter Miller, Andrew Short finished 10th in class. And then scrolling further down, Sarah Price and Sean Berriman finished 27th, but they won multiple stages. So credit to Sarah Price, who's one of my crushes and an absolute beast behind the wheel of any race car. So that's the Dakar. Those for all the main categories there. So credit to the Americans that were able to go and do it and stand up in this great race and have a chance to either win or put themselves in a position to win. Last week for Supercross, they were at San Diego. This coming weekend will be Anaheim 2. So we'll go to San Diego Snapdragon Stadium. They don't use it anymore. Of course, that's where the Chargers used to play. They still should be playing there, to be fair. In the 250 main event, Julian Beaumer gets the win over Jordan Smith and Hayden Deegan. So KTM over Triumph over Yamaha. Cole Davies, Yamaha rider, 4th. Ryder DiFrancesco for Gas was 5th. Joe Shimoda had won A1, finished 7th. Garrett Marchbanks for Monster Energy Pro Circuit Kawasaki finished 8th. So that's the 250s. We'll get into the points. The 250 West points. Julian Beaumer is the points leader by 5 over Jordan Smith. Joe Shimoda's 3rd, is 7 points behind. Hayden Deegan is 10 points out in 4th. Ryder DiFrancesco 12 points back in 5th. And then in the 450 main event, as I mentioned, Eli Tomac gets the victory. Broke a record, I believe, for wins at San Diego. Beat Jet Lawrence by 1.5 seconds, the defending series champion. Cooper Webb got the whole shot and ran off early in the race. Tomac's teammate, former multiple-time champion, and Cooper Webb. Ken Roczen was 4th, and Hunter Lawrence was 5th. Chase Sexton finished 6th. Malcolm Stewart, after having a brutal A1, was able to recover, finish 7th in this main event here. Justin Barsha finishes 8th. Dylan Ferrandis, Joey Savacci rounding out the top 10. Jorge Prado and Jason Anderson 12th and 13th. Benny Bloss on the Beta, his teammate. Mitchell Oldenburg 16th and 19th. And Aaron Plessinger DNF'd out of the race there. The point standings heading to A2, Eli Tomac has a 1-point lead on Chase Sexton, 2-point lead on Ken Roczen. Cooper Webb is 4th, 4 points behind there. And then Jet Lawrence right now is 5th, 10 points back. Barsha 12 points back in 6th. and then goes down 1 point apiece all the way down to Justin Cooper in 10th. So very close still, 2 races into the season, plenty to play for. We'll see what happens at A2 next week. The Rally Monte Carlo is coming up, of course, for WRC. 10 drivers will be competing in the Rally 1 category. All right, so entry list, you have Thierry Neuville taking the number 1 on his car instead of his usual number 11. And 10 cars will run out of the Rally 1 category, as I said. Then you have Efren Evans for Toyota, Ott Tanak for Hyundai, Sebastian Ogier, the 9-time world champion for Toyota, running number 17. Efren Evans, 33, Ott Tanak, number 8. Adrian Formeau moving over from Ford to Hyundai, number 16. Takamoto Katsuda, number 18 for Toyota. 2-time World Rally champion Kalle Rovanperä back full-time. Will drive his usual number 6-9 there. And he's running for manufacturer's points along with Ogier and Evans. Hyundai only has 3, so they can go and they have 5 and they're running 4 there. So actually, Sami Pajari is going to also run for manufacturer points. So that's interesting. Not Katsuda, the rookie Sami Pajari there, number 5. Gregoire Munster for M Sport Ford, number 13. Josh McElrain for M Sport will run the number 55. Then in Rally 2 is a deep field here. Oliver Solberg will be driving for Toyota. Gus Greensmith will be driving a Skoda, former Rally 1 driver. Looking through some of these other names, seeing if there's anybody familiar to me at least. Not that nobody that I see. Trying to look for the Iron Dames team because they're listing it by the driver. Alrighty, so that's Rally. We went through Rally 1, Rally 2. I have to go and figure out where the Iron Dames are there. So we can move on to the Rolex 24 at Daytona. There will be 60? Is that what it is? How many cars? It'll be 61.
Yeah, 61.
61 entries for this weekend's event. We're going to have 12 in the GTP category, 4 Porsches, 2 factory Porsches from Penske, the defending champions, and then the 2 customer cars from JDC Miller and Proton. You'll have the Cadillacs from Wayne Taylor Racing, and then the Whelen Engineering car, 2 BMWs, the 2 Acuras from Meyer Shank, and then Lamborghini will have their SC63 racing there. I mean, for prototypes, the 6 car won last year. Or no, was it the 7? Whatever. I think it was Nazar and Dane Cameron won last year's race there with Joseph Newgarden. But they're running with 3 drivers. It looks like both Penske cars, so it isn't as weird for the one Cadillac team with Alex Lynn falling out with his illness. With Jordan Taylor, Louis Delatraz, Kamui Kobayashi will run as a 3-driver team. Whelen Engineering team, brand new. Jack Aitken, Bampa. Frederick Vesti from Formula 2, Felipe Drogovic, a former Formula 2 champion, will be the drivers there. BMW ALL, Marco Wittmann, Sheldon Vanderlinde, Robin Freins, Rene Rast, Philip Eng, Dries Vanthoor, Kevin Magnussen making his debut for Team RLL BMW, and then Raffaele Marciello, On through there, Ricky Taylor, Philippe Albuquerque, Will Stevens, Brendan Hartley, Porsche's Nazar, Tandy Vantor, Jaminet Campbell Estra, Neil Yanni, Fautier, Nico Pino, and they have a fourth question mark there. Tom Blomqvist and Colin Braun brought back together to drive the 60 for Meyer Shank. Scott Dixon and Felix Rosenquist will be the other drivers helping out there. Mirko Bortolotti, Romain Grosjean, Danny Kvyat, and Eduardo Mortara, the drivers for Lamborghini. Timon Vanderhelm, Jimmy Bruni, Pascal Verline, and Bryce Aaron. The silver will be in the JDC Miller Motorsports 85 Banana. And then the Meyer Shank Phillips 6693 car will have Renger Van de Zande, Nick Yellowly, Alex Palou, and Kako Ota, the Japanese driver. In LMP2, you have 12 cars, and that all will be the Orica cars, no other chassis this year. You have Nick Boulay and Ben Hanley in the 2 car. George Kurtz in his 04 will have Colton Herta as one of his drivers. Tower Motorsports will have Sebastian Bourdais in the 8. You have Hunter McElray in the number 11 for TDS. Paul Lufschatin, David Heinmeier Hansen, Ryan D'Aldiera 18. Paul DeResta back in the 22 for United Autosports. Daniel Goldberg. John Field, must be the junior John Field. Antonio Felix da Costa, Bejoy Garg, Tom Dillman. Interesting combination there for Inter Europol. Ben Peterson, Ben Keating will be in the PR1 Matheson Motorsports 52. Pietro Fittipaldi driving the Pratt Miller LMP2 with James Rowe, Callum Ilott, Chris Cumming. So I think it's Pietro Fittipaldi and James Rowe who are the regulars. So that'll be, I believe that's it. So that'll be a good lineup there, regular for the full season. Gar Robinson, Fraga, Josh Burdon, and Felipe Massa actually driving. Kompanak, Dylan Murray, Nicholas Nielsen, Mathieu Vaxvier, AF Corsa, PJ Hyatt, Dane Cameron, who's hired to drive full-time for them in the AO Racing car, Johnny Edgar, and then Christian Rasmussen, who's, of course, driving full-time for Ed Carpenter Racing this year. Solid driver lineup for the AO Racing team there to go through the... So then for the GTD Pro, we have 12, 15, 4, 8, 12, 15 cars in that category. Madison Snow, Neil Verhagen, Connor DeFilippi, Kelvin Vanderlinde, the 1 for Paul Miller Racing, Antonio Garcia, Alexander Sims, Daniel Juncadella, Corvette, Tommy Milner, Nicky Katzford, Nico Verone. Usual suspects, really. Proton Competition, Richard Leitz, their usual, Thomas Preining, both are their usual drivers. Porsche Factory, Lexus, Vassar Sullivan will have Townsend Bell. So the 2 analysts for Fox will be racing each other in the GTD Pro category. Kyle Kirkwood will also be in that Vassar Sullivan Lexus. Aaron Telitz, have Augusto Farfus, Jesse Krohn driving that 48 for Paul Miller. Rockenfeller, Sebastian Prio, and then Gumby Cindric will be in the 64 Ford Mustang for Multimatic. All European group there in the 65. Lucas Stoltz, Maxime Martin, Fabian Scherl for the Get Speed Bartone 69 AMG. Engel, Gunan, Grenier, Kenny Abel, and the Sun Energy 75 car. Lauren Heinrich, Klaus Bachler, and Eliseo Picarello. In the Rexy Porsche, Davide Rigo and Miguel Molina amongst the driver lineup for Dragon Speed Ferrari. The one that people will be watching, I would think, is the number 91 Trackhouse by TF Sport Corvette, which Ben Keating will also drive that car along with Connor Zilic. So quite possibly the oldest and the youngest drivers in this race together. And then the two Kiwis who raced against each other for many years in the Supercars Championship, Scott McLaughlin and Shane Van Gisbergen, will be teammates in the Corvette there. So that'll be interesting for those guys. The GTD category has the biggest field amongst them. They have 22 cars in that field. So you have Gradient Racing changed to Ford for Mustang. You have Magnus Racing on what's possibly their last race for a while. Andy Lally, it'll be his last race, he says, of his career before he takes over as the president of the SCCA Trans Am. And then we have Ina Monk, Stephen McAleer with James Collado and Mike Skeen and a Triarci Ferrari now. One of a few Ferraris that they have in that category. I think, what is it, four Ferraris five Ferraris in that class. You have one or two Corvettes, or no, I missed that one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 6 Ferraris. Yeah, and then a couple of Astons, a couple of Lambos, a couple of Mercedes. The one Mercedes, the Windward Mercedes. Then the Iron Dames will come back this year. They'll be running Porsches. And you have Turner Motorsports with the Liquid Moly 96. Solid driver lineup for them. And so that's the Rolex 24 entry list. You also have the Michelin Pilot Challenge that will be racing. Josh, you mentioned one of the guys that's driving for Brian Hurd Autosport comes from the sim and has now gotten her career in regular racing. Sounds like one of the guys that works at the sim racing place that I go to. He's been able to dovetail that into a handful of appearances in different series, including the MX5 Cup. But I don't know if you want to talk about him.
Yeah, I mean, Suelo Almeida, I think that's how you say his name. He's been a guy on YouTube and social media trying to build up a brand of. I mean, he does a lot of coaching videos and techniques and stuff, and he's done some collaborations with other iRacing YouTubers, like doing challenges. Like he did one with a iRacing oval YouTuber, and they did some back and forth where the oval guy went and did iRacing on the road course and got some tips from him, and then Suelo went and raced NASCAR trucks on Charlotte and did that. So I see his videos and try to apply some of those techniques and learn from it. There's been some things I've taken from some of his videos to try to make my racing better, of course. So last year he got an opportunity. I mean, he's been able to sell a coaching course as well, and last year that got huge and everything. And he's been able to do the Radical Cup. That's the series that he competed in last year. And I think he won a couple of races there, and I think he was competitive in that championship. I don't know if he won it or not, but I guess all of that to say that he's kind of parlayed this into. I mean, I think he's sponsoring it because the sponsor is listed as Almeida Sim Coaching, I think. But he's definitely a talented driver, and he's been able to parlay this into an opportunity to compete in IMSA. So we'll see how this goes there in the BMW Challenge, and maybe next year we'll be talking about him being in the Rolex 24, so or something like that, maybe in a few years. So he's definitely one of those content creators. I mean, Jimmy Broadbent has done gone from being a sim race creator on iRacing and other games, and now while not quite competing professionally like Suelo is about to in IMSA, he's definitely made some marks and headway in the last couple of years competing over in Europe in some, I think, lower level like GT3 classes. So some of these guys, glad to see some of these guys make their opportunities and make go from being the sim racer to going to being going competing and everything. And I mean, we talk about Verstappen, talk about Raja Caruth, and all these other guys that are sim racing regulars, and of course they were already in. Well, maybe not Raja Caruth, but a lot of these guys, while they did get started in sim racing, they already kind of had a path. But some of the content creators whose main goal was to create content for sim racing, now getting a chance to compete in real life racing is pretty incredible. So glad to see that happen and all that stuff. So of course, I will be at the Rolex 24. Our friend Joe will be at the Rolex 24 also. So be definitely getting our cameras out and taking a lot of pictures there. So definitely trying to create content, I guess, that way. I mean, it's more personal, I guess, but definitely be able to, get all the good pics and all that, and definitely trying to get a lot of these pictures of all these great cars that are going to be competing here this Saturday and Sunday here in Daytona.
Absolutely. That's one of the two main things that are going on here this coming weekend for me, other than, one of three, birthday weekend being the other one. But you have the Rolex, you have what we're going to talk about now, championship weekend for football, for the NFL. Who's going to make it to the Super Bowl? Who's going to make it to New Orleans in a couple of weeks' time? That is a great question. You're going to have the NFC Championship first, battle between Washington and Philadelphia. And, I mean, they know each other. It's a third matchup here between these two teams. You have these players that are playing at a very high level. Barkley has not been in a spot to be in a championship situation in a while. Philadelphia, of course, made the Super Bowl a couple of years back, 2 years ago, I think. And they lost that game to Kermit. And then you have, that was the first, because they lost the year before Kansas City. Or no, they didn't make the Super Bowl the 1 year. They lost and then they went and won against Philly, and then beat the Niners. Okay, so NFC Championship game, Philly trying to go back again versus a Commander team and franchise that I mentioned has not made the big game since 1991, the 91 season, when Joe Gibbs was the coach and Mark Rippon was their quarterback. Mark Rippon, who once upon a time owned a NASCAR team with Greg Pollux to the number 23 car that was the Bear sponsored car, and then eventually the John Deere sponsor for Chad Little. And Joe Gibbs was that was the last game he had coached. So Jaden Daniels has played at a very high level, but Jalen Carter's playing at a very high level too. It's the unmovable, and you have, of course, a well-respected defensive coordinator now. He's been there, and that defense has played at a high level. A lot of name guys there. That's really where this lies, I think, in the end. I know that Saquon's going to be able to do work. I'm not so sure about the passing game with Jalen Hurts. He hasn't really been, outstanding by any means. A.J. Brown, the one-on-ones, we'll see what he's able to do. But it's really, to me, what can Jaden Daniels do? And can he manipulate that, go and play against that defense and make the plays necessary without making mistakes, and get the job done? And as much as I would like to see that happen, see the General Redskin Commanders make it, I do not believe it's going to happen, at least this year. It doesn't mean that it isn't possible. I mean, Dan Marino did it in his rookie year, so it isn't impossible for it to happen. But I do not think they have enough to beat the Philadelphia Eagles at this point. I think the Eagles go back to the Super Bowl, and I would say, I'll say it will be 27-20 or 27-23, something like that. One of them scores there. Washington will be in the game, but it just won't be able to do enough to get over the edge there. I think Saquon's going to take the ball out of their hands when it counts anyways. What say you, Josh, on the NFC Championship game?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to go with the Commanders here because I think they have a really good offense, and they've already beaten the Eagles once, so I think you can beat them again here. It's going to be tougher. It's on the road. When they did it, it was at home late in the season, right? But I think Jaden Daniels is one of the best rookie quarterbacks that we've seen, so I think he can come in here to Philadelphia and light them up on defense, which is going to be tough because defense for Philly's been really tough this year, and we saw that they played against the Rams there, and the defense for the Commanders, I don't know, not quite as good as maybe what the Eagles are on defense. So, will they be able to stop Saquon? I think that's definitely part of it as well. So, yeah, for me, I think I'm gonna just go with the ride with the vibes, ride with Dale Jr. here, pick the Commanders and go into the Super Bowl as should be a shocker because it's basically just, this is supposed to be year one of their rebuild, right? After years of turmoil, but now Dan Quinn could potentially go back to the Super Bowl, maybe redeem himself for what happened in 2016 with the 2016 season postseason with the Falcons in 28-3 in the Super Bowl. So could he go back to the Super Bowl and to be able to do it with a rookie QB and everything that they have? That would be quite a story.
Yeah, definitely. It would be pretty crazy to see a rookie quarterback make it to the Super Bowl if that were to happen. So we go and split on the NFC Championship game, and now it's Kermit the Frog and the Chiefs versus Josh Allen and the Bills again. It's the immovable force that is the Chiefs. It's like what the Patriots were for so many years before that. Andy Reid's Hall of Fame credentials go up with he's already in, but it's just a case of whenever he decides to quit. With every one of these wins, once upon a time he could get to the championship game and he couldn't win. Then they made the Super Bowl the one time and they lost. And then he went to Kansas City and he'd win playoff games, but wasn't able to get to the championship game. Then he got this freaking guy, and then he goes to the championship game every freaking year. So 7 years in a row they've made the championship game. That is ridiculous. I think with the flopping and all the BS that they do, knowing that it's in Arrowhead, knowing all the other stuff that's there, the refs are probably on the take. Can Buffalo fade that, really? They beat the Chiefs and knocked them off of the unbeatens, and that was one of the 2-3 losses they had, two losses they had the whole year. So, and the other loss was in a game that was completely meaningless. So for them, so the only game where they actually played their ones and they lost was against the Bills. The reality is just it's going with my heart, I want the Bills to win. Professor J, I think I'd have to check on him if he hasn't put himself through a flaming table. If they do win that game, it would be something, because it'd be the first time since '93 for them. Would be something. It would be if somehow or another the Commanders and the Bills had ended up going and playing each other, that would be a rematch of that Super Bowl. I think it was a Super Bowl 26, I believe, or 27. Yeah, 20. I think it's Super Bowl 26. So that is ridiculous. And that was when they played Minnesota. I have to go and get the freaking koozie. I have the koozie over there. But honestly, I mean, Josh Allen, he did what he needed to do, and he has been all season. For him and for the Buffalo Bills, Sean McDermott, they need to get the job done in Arrowhead against Kermit the Frog. Joe Burrow did it with freaking whatever the hell his name is, the coach, and he's a bum. And that team is, that organization's a joke too. They have a better organization. Sean McDermott is a mid-head coach. And Joe Brady is a good offensive coordinator. I don't know how he isn't getting looks for head coaching jobs, but I honestly think he's going to get it done. Kansas City all year, yes, they've lost one game, I think, when they tried, but the notion is the vast majority of those games were really close games. There were games they really had no business winning, and they won. At some point, the jig has to be up, even for Kansas City. Does it happen here, or does it happen in 3 weeks' time? I don't know, 4 weeks, whatever it is. Which way is it going to be at 3 weeks' time, or is it going to happen here? I think it's going to happen here. I think the Bills go to the Super Bowl. But do you see the Chiefs, Josh, going back to another Super Bowl, or?
I don't want them to, so I'm going to pick the Bills, because as much as I dislike the Bills right now, because I don't know, I don't really care for them too much. I find the Bills fan base to be annoying. So especially like with the whole and yeah, you gotta put it up there.
I forgot about the belt.
Yeah, we forgot about it.
The belt, so I had to bring it. I was like, damn, I haven't brought the gimmick out. So yeah, no,
it's okay. But I mean, like, I can't stand the Bills like fan base, and like whenever they're up big, or like the momentum has swung in their direction, you hear like the train sound and the fans and the stupid chant that they do and stuff. I don't care about the tables slamming, that's whatever, but the whole vibe, I just don't care for it. But they got to beat the Chiefs, because Kansas City can't keep getting away with this. Just Mahomes, I'm not gonna say he's not good, but I don't think he's clearly not played as well as what he did even a couple of years ago. They've completely changed their style of play, right? And they're definitely a more of a ball control team now, and a defensive team right now. But they can't keep winning this, and it's going to be too easy of a setup if they do, because they've literally been 5 seconds after they won the Super Bowl, they're like, oh, can you go to 3 in a row? And we're literally watching it happen right in front of us, this storyline play out. Can they win 3 in a row and everything? The Swift factor or whatever, that's beside the point to me, because that's kind of, I've already ignored that, and that's not even in my mind anymore. But yeah, they haven't been that good on offense this year, and they got to find a way to lose this one, so that can't see them. Because plus it's crazy how the AFC, every year AFC is always the same in the Super Bowl. They just it's always going to be nearly every year it's always Manning, Brady, and now Mahomes that represented the AFC in the Super Bowl. So there's got to be somebody different. I mean, literally the one year it was different. It was Joe Burrow. So yeah, and I don't know. I know the Patriots, their years of dominance. I actually kind of like the Patriots and everything when they had Tom Brady, so I didn't mind that as much. But I don't know. I can't stand the Chiefs for whatever reason. So yeah, that's what it is for me. Just can't see them. I don't want to see them go 3 in a row here and go to the Super Bowl. And I mean, man, they're going to make me have to root for the Eagles if they do. In that case, or I would like the Commanders to go and win it all. But if the Eagles win and the Chiefs win, that's just going to be a terrible game to watch. So just please, Bills in the dynasty, at least for now.
Yeah, it's more a case of we're both done with this like Kermit the Frog stuff. It's enough. He can lose. He lost he got killed in the one Super Bowl by Brady. Get it? The way the league is, the way that Goodell wants it. He wants Kansas City winning. That's fine. But not this week. That would be a great birthday present, honestly, to watch Patrick Mahomes have to walk off his field, not winning that game. That would be fun. But I'm not gonna beg, or I'm not gonna pray to I used to do that and never worked anyway, so it's like whatever. It's about the Bills going out there and doing what they need to do. They did it once, they can do it again. So we'll see if they can do it. And we'll talk about it next week on the GSP. So, let's move forward. Let's talk about, let's hear about your iRacing 24 hours, Josh, and how your experience driving an LMP2 and all that, and everything else going on in the world of iRacing gaming in the sim segment.
Yeah, I mean, iRacing 24 hours of Daytona. So yeah, we drove LMP2, split 34 out of 43 in the 7 a.m. time slot, so U.S. time slot, and that was 12 p.m. GMT there around for other people that have observed that around the world. But we had a couple of guys that I was able to get teamed up with this group called Sim Party Racing, and we were like organized into the Omega team, which originally was supposed to be a GT3 class with Ferrari 296, but they made some reorganizing and stuff and some shuffling around, so got put into LMP2, which I had never driven before. I was kind of familiar with GT3, and that's what I thought I would be doing, but LMP2, being able to get into that was a good experience there, driving that car, having to learn that car for the first time. So, having to, understand how to drive deeper into the corner because it has the downforce and the braking capability. It doesn't have the top speed of a GTP car, but in the acceleration, but it does have the, same mid corner handling and some of the braking capability there. So, having to learn that car for the past week leading up into that race, yeah, it's definitely an interesting challenge there. So, being able to do that was great, and having to go out and learn all that stuff was interesting as well. But then, of course, the race itself, we started second in class, so we qualified second, and I think we got out to the lead, we didn't get out to the lead initially, but I think through the first couple of stints we got into the lead. But then when I got in, we were able to maintain the lead for a bit. But my second stint, so I had my first shift in there. I had 2 stints. My second one, I tried to let a GTP car go, and I got in the marbles and ran into the tires there. So that was the first big oops there for us, because I think everything had kind of gone solidly up until that point. With getting, I think one of our guys made contact and we had damage, but it wasn't like enough to take us out, and put us down a lap. It's just like repairs that would just come throughout the pit stop. But the first incident for me, turn 7, going back onto the oval, tried to let a GTP car go by me, and I was hoping he would go by me in the West Horseshoe, but he didn't take it, so I kind of gave him the inside there, but I stayed too high, and I got into the marbles, and got couldn't turn and got into the barriers there. So knocked the tire out of alignment and stuff. And then because we couldn't turn, we hit the outside wall in turn one, and then basically trying to limp it back. Drove through the grass, which that doesn't exist IRL now. So in real life, so in the bus stops. So and then got to limped it back to pit road and had 6 minutes of damage. And I was like, man, I can't. We always talk about like who's going to be the one to do this, and I was hoping it wouldn't be me, but then it ended up having to be me. So got through. It's like, okay, well, we wrecked, so it's fine. It's got it off our chest now, and then here we go. So I finished the rest of my stint after the repair, and then handed it off to the next guy on there. And soon the rain came in the game, which that was very interesting. iRacing introducing rain into the game now. That definitely changed the strategy, and it's like, okay, well, now when do we go on the wets? When do we go back onto the dry? Had the debate with as I think we were on wet tires for after my first shift, and then we got onto wet tires during that point. And then the next guy that got in, he was on wet tires for quite a bit, and we were able to. So we fell down to 7th place in class. I think we lost like 6 laps or so, and then we were able to get back up into second through that those next 2 stints there of driving, and through attrition. It's a race of attrition, so especially with the rain. And then we switched onto dry tires while the track state began to dry up, because I was like, well, the track's drying up. We can kind of tell the tires are getting too hot now with the tread, the wet tires. There's a significant dry line forming, so let's get onto the dry tires now and try to make up more time. And it was significant because the leaders, they stayed on wet tires for quite a bit longer than us, and we were able to get onto the wet tire or back onto the dry tires and put up lap times that are like 5 to 7 seconds faster than what the leaders were running, and run that through our stint and make up more time. And then at the end of that guy's shift, Sam, that's his name. At the end of Sam's shift, we ran into an issue because pit road was still slick. So I guess he wasn't able to get slowed down in time, and so he missed the pit entry and ran out of gas. So then we had to call the tow truck and lose 2 minutes of time being simulating the tow. Well, we didn't completely run out of gas, but it was like, okay, we missed the pit entry and we have basically 0.1 gallons of gas left, so we're not going to make it back. So we we lose time there. And then the next guy, Tom, he gets in and goes on, and I think he had an issue too, because exiting pit road was also kind of slippery and treacherous. So I think he just hit a wet patch there and slipped, somehow spun off of the pit exit into the across the entrance to the or the International Horseshoe, and spun into the grass. And I was like, what the hell just happened here? And how did that even happen? So he had to take a penalty and drive through pit road there. So still, I think we were in second or third at this point. So had that happen, but we managed to get up into second by that point. And I think we still maintained a gap of like 2 laps or 3 laps down to the leaders at some point there. And then I drove, and my first stint went well for my for that turn. And then the other guy, Joe, he got in and drove for a shift, and then I got back in because it was actually supposed to be a double stint for me, but then we had a miscommunication there, and then he hopped in, and then I hopped back in, and it was looking to be okay because he did his double stint, and then I went back in for a single stint. It's looking to be okay. I think we are officially a lap and a half down to the leaders, and then again, I was doing okay in the wet. It's very, very wet throughout that shift, or throughout that stint. And then I had about 5 laps left on fuel, West Horseshoe, trying to get around a GT3 car and get get back into the marbles, spin out, and then another LMP2 ran into me. So again, limp it back to the pit road and get more repairs. And at that point, we weren't losing second because we were, I think, 9 laps ahead of second. So, or ahead of third. And so then, from there, 6 minutes of repairs, the next guy hops in to do his turn. And by that point, I've been up since 6:30 in the morning. It's now 1 a.m. on Sunday. I go take a couple hours of sleep. And from then, I think they made up enough time to be within a lap and a half again of the leader. But I mean, by then it was kind of well all decided. So it was only if like they wrecked out or something where we gonna win in class. And then that was actually my last shift there, because just the way that it played out. Not because I got removed from the car or anything, but just the scheduling, the way it worked out. Because I think I was initially going to have the final shift in the car, but just the way that the damages and the repairs worked out, I think just and the way that the weather worked out too, because definitely weather time or wet laps are definitely like we were running 138, 139s, 140s as on dry tires, wet lap times anywhere from 146, 148 to 150, 152 range. So in terms of 1 minute, 40 second laps, 50-second laps. So definitely lengthened some of the stints there with the wet weather racing. So wasn't able to get another shift in, but we all met the fair share requirement for racing there. So yeah, I mean, we definitely had a lot of moments there. And everything, and we were able to secure second. I mean, yeah, I would have liked to have won, but it's definitely very hard to win one of these things. You definitely have to exercise a lot of patience, which I think I found out. Especially my second shift. Like probably could have avoided trying to pass on the outside in the wet. Offline against the GT3 car that I knew was slower because like he had just spun out himself and was kind of off the pace, or at least somebody that had spun and hadn't regained all their pace. I thought I could get around him, and like, why did I have to do that, right? Like I could have just let him go, or try to keep just pass on the oval, just wait until you get into the oval to get around slower traffic. But I thought I could just get around this guy and try to keep up our pace, and try to stay out of the way of the GTP cars there, and try to help the team and all that. But which I felt bad about the wrecking both times, but I mean, it is what it is. It happens, and we were able to get through it. So yeah, the Rolex 24 or iRacing 24 is not sponsored by Rolex, so not as, but it's the Rolex 24. But yeah, the GTP one, and I think they the winning GTP in our split, I think at one point had, pretty sure he had like a 13 lap lead on the entire class of GTPs, but by the end I think he only had 3 laps on second, so in overall. So I don't really know what happened there, but the winner in LMP2, yeah, obviously, yeah, they won, but they were 7th overall. So they 7th overall, and we were 9th overall. So yeah, it's pretty good. Considering all things considered, and the way these things work out, having to navigate slower traffic in the GT3 cars, and then GTP, some of those guys race pretty aggressively. They race, they don't care for traffic and all that, and they definitely put a lot of people in bad positions. But do shout out the handful of GTP guys that actually raced with courtesy and waited to make smart decisions and not put LMP2 and GT3 in compromising positions there. So there's definitely some risky moments there with racing around that traffic, but definitely learned a lot in road racing skill, and exercising more caution and patience. There's definitely a lot of difference from NASCAR and oval racing to road racing, and I think I definitely learned a lot that probably could help me improve in the road racing craft. I think I've always approached it with racing, just trying to finish as high as possible and try to put as many best laps together as possible, when really you have to exercise caution, you have to exercise patience, and it's not always about just like trying to put the best hot lap every lap in some of these shorter stint races, but to just race smarter and have better racecraft that way. So I understand it in an oval, but road racing haven't quite put it together yet on there. So that was the 24, and hopefully I'll be able to do it again and everything next year, and hopefully calendar schedule wise be able to do that. But yeah, definitely looking forward to working with my teammates again next year, and hopefully we are able to band together and hopefully make a run. And you can call me, maybe next year you can call me the iRacing 24-hour Daytona winner in addition to the Indy 500. So yeah, we'll see.
Hey, it's something to aim for now. Now you're getting more experience in the road racing. I'll keep mine short. I raced in my first week of the Apex One league. Of course, I'm rank amateur. Never did iRacing until the week before. Driving in Oran Park this first week was at Okayama Circuit, the old AIDA, what was once called AIDA Circuit, where Formula One raced in 94 and 95. Track hasn't changed really, but driving the BMW M2 was got no practice, then crashed on my qualifying, coming to the line for the first hot lap, and then I wrecked. So that meant I started in the back of the heat race. So I was literally doing my practice in the heat race. A bunch of people ran over each other, got third there. So then I started third, was getting run into during the pace, like the warm-up lap. Then I was trying to catch up and then crashed into somebody. And then somebody else went and like completely destroyed a car initially. Then when the race started, I kind of backed off early, and then two guys ran me over. So then I had to bring my car in, had to do the damage repair, went a lap down with that. But I came out of the pits, ended up being behind the leader, who led the majority of the race before he wiped himself out. I was behind the guys that were in the top three, and I was able to keep a reasonable pace. Yeah, I was losing time in certain areas, trying to figure it out, but I was running reasonable lap times, not as fast as them, fine, but figuring it out. So another week. This week will be Lime Rock, so we'll see what happens with that. No chicanes. It'll be the second chicane circuit there with the new redo. So we'll see how we do there. Fifth in points. We'll see if everybody else shows up. The people that were missing, if they show up. A couple of them guys that are in that wave are pretty darn good. They do the go-karting league at Supercharged. So they're serious. So, and then there's one dude who's an alien type guy, and then there's the first wave guys are all really, really good. So that's that. So Josh, where can we find you on the socials?
Yeah, of course, and yeah, I got to mention the iRacing stream, which I don't know exactly how long the the Twitch streams actually stay up, but of course the Twitch stream, of course, at my Twitch page at usailor2, go watch that. And the Rolex 24 hours of Daytona stream, of course, that's going to be up there for at least a couple of weeks, I guess, until they delete it or whatever. But it's up there if you want to watch the replay there. But there was a part, I should mention, there was a part where the iRacing sim crashed on me, and then I was still in chat with my teammates, but the sim crashed, and then I reopened it, and I was like, well, I want to try to get a little bit more comfortable in the middle of this. So I actually opened an offline session for about one stint, or I don't know, about an hour, where I just did some offline testing in the middle of it to try to get a little bit more comfortable, because I hadn't actually had a warm up. That was the other part. Everybody else kind of had a warm up, and I was still kind of relying on my practice from the day before, but wanted to try to kind of get the nerves out of the way by hot lapping myself offline. So I did that for like 45 minutes or so to an hour during the event. So if you do watch that and you notice it cuts away to something else and it looks like I'm just on the track by my own, that's what that is. So that's there. So yeah, that's that stream is there. It's a full 24 hours of Daytona on there, and so go on there and watch that, of course, and all my other sim racing stuff there. So yeah, and then of course Twitter page at JP Huffine. Go on there, and maybe we'll be posting some photos, of course, as we go through the Rolex 24 this weekend here in Daytona. So got that, and then of course our YouTube page at Grip Show Podcast, which will have this uploaded there, and go and watch that and watch all our episodes. Which, of course, the draw, of course, right now is this wrestling belt trophy for the fantasy league. Which Phil, we got to show the league and show that this thing is in your hands. Of course, now that the fantasy season is now over. So yes. Yes, the trophy. Maybe next year it'll be on the other side, on this side of the camera. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
As always, thank you for everything you do, man, and for all your great driving ability and also all the great takes that you provide on the show, brother. For me, you can find me at PGMGSP28 on Instagram. You can find me at PGMatthew28 on Twitter. And then on Blue Sky at PGMGSP28. You can find me philipgmatthew.com on WordPress, where I have my YouTube page where the audio goes for the show. And yeah, we will be back. I'll be a man. I'll be 40. And we'll talk about the Rolex 24 next week, Rally Monte Carlo, who made the Super Bowl, and because the Clash will be up next week, so we're actually going to have at least, well, not a full season preview, but at least a Clash preview